booktube. Well, once again I'm going to start off on a repetitive note and say it's been a while. I know I made a video, what, month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, and I was hoping that I would be able to pump out a few because I had read books and I could talk about something. And then once again life got in the way. It's funny how life has just been getting in the way this year. This is the first year where I actually have not yet reached my 100 book reading goal. I know it's my Goodreads challenge, and you know, bugger Goodreads. I'd like to get through 100 books a year. It's the least I could do, you know. I mean, it's less than 10 books a month. I can do this. I usually do it by October. However, 2019 has not been the year for reading. I don't know what's got into me. I get into bed with my book, and usually this is where I can put away a good 20 minutes to an hour's worth of reading at night, and I read 5 pages and I'm out for the count. So it hasn't really been a great time for reading books because it doesn't really do well for fiction. I can't remember who the blooming characters are. I can't remember that dropped clue from 40 pages ago when that was 2 weeks ago in reading time. So it's actually been a year where I have, as a result, been reading more non-fiction than I've ever read before. In fact, I think I've read more non-fiction this year than I've read collectively in the past. So I suppose that's something that's to be gained from it. So what I'm going to do in this video, since it's let me try and get back into the rhythm of all of this, which one would think wouldn't be all that hard. I mean, I'm sitting here in my library talking to myself, and the only difference is that I have a camera on as opposed to me talking to myself, thinking about how the bloody hell I'm going to get everything done. But anyway, so moving on. So this one, I'm going back a bit here, so excuse me if I'm a little bit rusty. This is I Am by Maggie O Farrell, and I heard about this one from, now is it Heidi or Debbie? From My Reading Life. Oh my god, I know I call her the one and her name's the other one, and I always feel bad because I don't always catch it to edit. Anyway, she understands, I hope. Anyway, so this is the first book I picked up, and this was because of her. And I mean, it's got an awesome cover, if nothing else. I like that heart there. This book was quite interesting. So it discusses, oh, how many was it? 15, 17. We are going back a while here. So, you know, it was something like 17 close encounters to death, or Maggie O Farrell's close encounters to death. And there were things in this book that I really appreciated. So I really appreciated, or actually no, I was horrified, but her medical experiences. So when she went to the doctor when she was pregnant and wanting a Caesar, and here you have these obnoxious men who don't have to pass something that size, you know, turning around and calling you a chicken, and you're in for the celebrity websites because you'd like a Caesar, you know. I bet you, yeah, let me not go there. But they've got the blood pressure up. I learnt a lot about allergies with her daughter. That would be horrifying and terrifying, and I'm so pleased that I can eat nuts and enjoy them, and just, yeah, I hope I never inadvertently infect somebody by my skin for having muesli in the morning, some mornings. But there were also cases in here where she was just decidedly doof, and is doof a South African slang or is it generic? It means stupid. So there were occasions where she was pretty stupid, and her near-death experience was very much self-inflicted, unintentionally, purely poor judgment, but you know, we'll give her the benefit of the doubt. I suppose we'll do stupid things. So this one was interesting. It made me appreciate our medical system in South Africa, and that's not a good thing actually, because we do not have, or at least not fully functional, national health care. If I am in an accident and I don't have insurance, well, just leave me on the pavement to die, because I can't afford that bill. And you know, it's because we pay, we get good service, and it's an unfortunate side effect, I suppose. I mean, welcome to the one and only reason why national health care sucks. You get good service when you have to pay for it, and they need to you know, your doctor needs to be nice, otherwise you could find another one. And they kind of want your money so that they can, I don't know, buy another Mercedes Benz or a new garage for the next Mercedes. Anyway, sticking to medical things, this one also was fairly horrifying. This is The Blink of an Eye by somebody whose name I will never be able to pronounce. I hope this is all catching up with the video because I can't see with the mirror behind. My eyesight sucks. Anyway, so this is by Rikka Schmidt, and we're just going to call her, yeah, K. It's not even in English letters. Anyway, so she is, she was she had a doctorate in science. I can't remember which field exactly, and in art as well. Not her doctorate, but she had a degree or master's in art or something. Her hubby was a doctor as well in some kind of a sciencey, I think medical field if I'm not mistaken, but research doctor. I know he wasn't in medical, but something to do with the body, I think. But anyway, I am proving once again that it's been a while since I've read these books. This was actually November's reading, and this was early November's reading. Anyway, so it starts off with Old Year's Night, and they are having a party. They've got friends, and the next morning they go for a walk along the beach, and by that night her heart stopped, and you know, she's dead for a while, and she ends up being trapped in her own body in a coma. It is quite horrific. Basically it was streptococcus. Is that said right? Strep. I had strep throat earlier this year. That was delish. Just saying, trying to teach. I went through 2 bottles of throat spray in 1 week. That was when I realized I probably should go to the doctor. And yeah, he politely booked me off for the rest for 4 days. I was like, oh yes, thank God. And I could read. And what did I do? I slept. Anyway, going back to this. So she had strep, but it didn't hit her throat. Apparently because she had lupus. Contrary to house, there is occasions where it is lupus. She had lupus as a child and something happened to her spleen. And so there was no defense, and it went straight to her brain. So it became a meningitis, streptococcus, that thing. And yeah, it was horrifying. I mean, she spent, I think, 5 months in hospital and rehab. And then it took her 2 years before she could actually move around and go back to work and things like that. She lost her fingers. It doesn't sound like her entire, you know, digit, but parts of her fingers, because of lack of blood flow and things like that. So they just shriveled up and died and became these little black things. They thought at one point she was going to lose her nose and all sorts of things as well. But it was absolutely horrifying how a healthy woman can be almost dead by nighttime in under a day. And yeah, I mean, there are situations and circumstances. I mean, if the night call doctor hadn't gone, oh yeah, it's just the flu, if he had actually taken it seriously and booked her in, there was a possibility that possibly, you know, things kind of could have got moving on. But there was luck as well. I mean, she wrote the book, there's luck. But also their own doctor, he was on holiday, and when he got the call, he decided to respond, which saved her life. But it was also very interesting because although she isn't writing it through her children's perspective, you can get a really good idea as to what her children went through with this, and her husband. She has an amazing husband, just saying, you know. So this was definitely an interesting read. I must admit that I was expecting a little bit more in the line of drama, etc. I suppose it's from having watched every episode of House more than once. But you know, it takes a while to go, oh wait, this is real life. You know, if this was real life and this happened to me, even half of this, I would have written a thicker book, man. I would have had a lot more to say. But it's, you know, you appreciate the strength of the human will to survive and make it through, and other people that also had similar, well, not the same problem, but, you know, strokes and coming back from that. And, you know, there was a young guy in the rehab where she was who came in very much like her, you know, absolutely basically a vegetable, and walked out on his own after a couple of months. And you it gives you something to respect. It was interesting, and it's very scientifically written. And what was also fairly interesting is that Bill Bryson wrote the intro to this, and I expected that to put this book a bit more out there, whereas I think I'm only one of 2 reviews on Goodreads for it, so obviously it's not as popular as I thought, but I thought it was really interesting. Then we're going to go to How to Be a Heroine by Samantha Ellis. It's been a while again for this one. Phew, this is starting to become a trend. I think this was I was reading in October, and I finished this I think in December, but only had a little bit left to go. So the beginning I'm very, very rusty on. So the beginning of this book really fascinated me. She was born in Britain, but both her parents were Iraqi Jews who escaped from Iraq at different points in time. Different processes. Her mother had been arrested, imprisoned, etc. for having been caught leaving. Her father, however, got out much earlier, and then they met when they were in England, because they're trying to keep relations within their people. Let's put it that way. And so she covers aspects of her family and how she felt like an outsider, etc. But she also felt like an outsider for this life of hers that she would never know, you know, being in Iraq and things like that. But that was, oh, and then the very beginning, the preface, the introduction to this, she and her friend, whose name I can't remember now, they go to wherever Wuthering Heights was supposed to be set in real life. And so they go and they take a walk around there, and Samantha mentions her love for Kathy, and her friend says to Jane Eyre, you've got it all wrong, you're supporting the wrong heroine. And so she starts thinking about it, and that is what inspired this book, was her re-evaluating the heroines of her childhood. And well, she's still in her 20s, she's a kid, but she's re-evaluating her heroines and looking at the stories. And in the beginning I was quite intrigued, I was quite interested, it was great, I'd read all of them, until we got to things like Lace. And what was the one that went with Lace? It was a Jilly Cooper thing. She was romance. I don't do romance. Anyway, so moving on. I found all of that part interesting, especially in the beginning, but then it kind of, you know, I can do my own literary criticisms if I want to. I don't really need to read somebody else's opinion on them, and it wasn't really earth-shatteringly eye-opening. It was just like, yeah, so it took you a while to figure that one out, didn't it, love? But yeah, I mean, there were aspects in it that I did enjoy, but overall I would say that this one's been a little bit overhyped, and if you haven't heard of it, I'm not necessarily meaning this in a nasty way. But yeah, I did expect a little bit more, I think. Maybe a different way of analysing characters. And then that brings me into this, because what she tries to do, I think, is what Virginia Woolf got right. Virginia Woolf, in A Room of One's Own, in case you're the one and only person on BookTube who has not read this book yet, you should really rectify that, you know. It's really not a thick book. Anyway, so if you're that person who hasn't read, just read it. It won't take long. What Virginia Woolf does so brilliantly in this is that she looks at not only female writers, but she looks at how women are written in fiction, that they are written in relation to men, the roles that women play. Oh man, I absolutely love this, and I can film all the thoughts that I was going to say on this just evaporating right now, and I haven't got my computer on to go and check up what I wrote on Goodreads. Damn it! But anyway, the one thing that Virginia Woolf does talk about in this is what women would need to be successful writers, and I think it actually extends beyond that, because she speaks about artists, etc., although she doesn't go into much detail with that. But she says a woman will need, I think she said £500 a year, might need a bit more nowadays, £500 a year and a room of one's own. and it's quite easy to see that. And the story that she tells in here, it's an analogy really. She makes up Shakespeare's sister. I think she named her Juliet. Oh, I swear it's been ages since I read this. This one I read this week. And she discusses, she gives a scenario which is, I think in some regards, fairly realistic, although obviously there's elements to it that wouldn't be. But why she wouldn't make it in the same world, even if she was as talented as her brother, why in those days she wouldn't have been able to. But it's quite interesting reading this. I mean, this is not an old book per se. I mean, it's not, you know, the other classics on my shelves. And, you know, how women were not allowed in the library unless they were introduced and accompanied. And, you know, it's like, what the bloody hell do you think a girl's going to do to a couple of books on a bookshelf? You know, is she going to spill her nail polish on it, or is she going to use the shiny cover to do her makeup? I mean, just, you know, I feel like saying men need to get over themselves. But I won't, because I know it's not all men, and it's an archaic thing, but it's been getting on my nerves a little bit, which you will tell when I make my next video and I mention Inspector Morse and some Agatha Christie. But we're going to save that for another video, because I'd like to make a few of them before I go back to work again and maybe abandon you. Anyway, so that is the 4 books that I wanted to talk about today. They're 4 non-fictions, although some are about fiction, but anyway. It's a start for my non-fiction reading. I'm now going to go back to reading every skinny book that I own, so that I can make my 100 book reading challenge. I think I might just mission my way through a couple of Shakespeare plays as well, because that's about 2 hours, if that, of reading. Alright, I've waffled enough. I'll see you around. Bye for now. Happy reading.